Good day, everyone. So we are the last group for this course of campus journalism, and we will now tackle the scaffold of opinions, writing editorials, chapter 8. Now, let's talk about editorial, its definition and concepts. So, as Filipino students, you might have experienced getting into a class divided into opposite positions on an issue. For instance, you were 40 in a class and you were debating on which is more popular, GMA7 or ABS-CBN 2. Let's say 25 were siding ABS-CBN while 15 were on GMA7 side. So here, editorial focus editorial focus on the discussion, which is understanding what an editorial is and the important ideas behind it. An editorial is a type of writing that expresses opinions about an issue, often supported by facts and logical reasoning. By studying its definition and concepts, students learn how editorials aim to influence readers' thinking. The slide also credits the presenter, showing responsibility and ownership of the topic. So here, in our given example, this explains that students commonly experience situations where opinions differ, especially in classroom discussions. It relates the concept of editorial writing to real-life experiences of Filipino students, making the lesson more relatable. This situation shows how disagreements naturally occur when people think differently, which is the foundation of opinion writing. It also provides a concrete example to help students better understand the idea of opposing opinions. By using well-known television networks such as the ABS-CBN and GMA7, it shows how debates arise from personal preferences. This example demonstrates how an issue can have more than one side, which is essential in forming editorial arguments. It also highlights that opinions are not always equally divided. It shows that same viewpoints may be more popular than others, but, but minority opinions still exist and matter. In editorial writing, both majority and minority views can be expressed as long as they are supported by valid reasons and evidence. Now, from the situation above, let us elicit the concepts and the elements that are embedded in an editorial. So here, first, let's talk about the concepts and elements of editorial paper. So we have 4 concepts and elements. The first one is an editorial should be based on an issue. So this means that an editorial must focus on a real and relevant issue that affects people or society. The issue can be social, political, or even educational or cultural. Without an issue, there is nothing to analyze or argue about, so the editorial would lack purpose. So, first of all, in order for you to craft your editorial paper, first of all, you must have an issue. How can you able to analyze or to make an argument or to make an opinion about it if you don't have any issue to tackle or to analyze? The second one is there should be a group or a cluster of minds analyzing a given issue. This this talks about that editorials usually represent collective thinking rather than just one person's opinion. A group, such as an editorial board, discusses and analyzes the issue together to form a balanced and well-considered viewpoint. This helps avoid bias and strengthens the credibility of the editorial. Now, in the second concepts and elements of editorial, our keyword here is the group. So, for you to be able to craft an editorial paper, you must have the opinion of the people around you, or let's say the people on this editorial board. You can just solely based on your own opinions, but rather than giving way to the opinions of others, so that in order for that to be not biased of your paper. The third one is there should be a stand. So an editorial must clearly state its position or opinion about the issue. It should not be neutral or undecided. Taking a stand helps readers understand what the editorial supports or opposes and guides them in forming their own opinions. Here, in our third concepts and elements of editorial, our keyword here is stand. So the first one, we have an issue, and now you brainstorm ideas from your group. And the third one, you must have a stand on that issue. So you cannot craft your editorial paper without standing or without defending your opinion. So you should not be, let's say, you should not be neutral or undecided with your opinion, because as an editorial writer, you must have a stand to defend. The fourth one is there should be pieces of evidences. Opinions in an editorial must be supported by facts, examples, statistics, or reliable information. Evidence makes the argument stronger and more convincing. Without evidence, the editorial would sound like a mere personal opinion rather than a credible analysis. So here, after you have an issue, you have a group discussion and a stand. Now you must present your evidences. Why? Because how can you able to defend your stand if you don't have any credible or concrete evidence that you can present to your audience or to your readers? So in order for you to craft your editorial paper, one of the crucial part of it is to present your evidences. Further, an editorial reflects the majority vote of the editorial board, the governing body of the newspaper. It usually unsigned or without a byline. Editorials are meant to influence public opinion, promote critical thinking, and sometimes cause people to take action on an issue. In essence, an editorial is an opinionated news story. So here, editorial represents the collective decision of the newspaper's editorial board. It reflects what the majority of the group agrees on, not just one writer's belief. This shows that the opinion has been carefully discussed and approved. Editorials often do not show the name of a specific author, since the editorial represents the voice of the newspaper as a whole. It is published without a byline. This reinforces the idea that it is a collective opinion. The purpose of editorials, they aim to persuade readers. Again, one of the purpose of the editorial paper is to persuade the audience, to convince the audience, encourage them to think deeply about issues, and sometimes inspire them to act. Editorials are powerful because they shape how people understand and respond to important topics. So, editorials are based on facts like news stories. They include opinions and interpretations. They go beyond reporting events by explaining what those events mean and why they matter. This makes editorial both informative and persuasive. So always remember, an editorial paper isn't just all about persuasion, but it is also can also be used to inform your readers or your audience. So the purpose of the one of the purpose of it is to inform and to persuade your readers. Now, let's move forward to the more comprehensive definition of an editorial. So here, they define the editorial as a concise expression of facts and opinions or an analytical interpretation of significant and timely topics or issues. Now, here, this definition explains that an editorial is a brief but clear expression of facts and opinions. It analyzes important and timely issues to help readers understand them better. By combining facts with interpretation, an editorial informs readers while guiding their judgment on significant topics. So, now let's move forward to the other characteristics of an editorial. So, we have here 6 characteristics. The first one is it follows a pattern. So, unlike a creative essay, an editorial usually adheres to a specific organizational structure. It typically begins with the introduction to the issue, moves into an argument backed by evidence, addresses the opposition, and ends with a call to action. This predictability helps the reader follow a complex logical argument without getting lost. So if they say it follows a pattern, you cannot write an editorial paper just like in what way you want to write it, because in writing an editorial paper you must have a proper structure to follow with. The second one is it simplifies an issue. One of the primary goals of an editorial is to take a dense, complicated news event, like a new tax law or a complex social issue, and break it down into understandable terms. The writer acts as a guide, filtering out the noise to focus on why the issue matters to the general public. So the third one is it provides opinions from the opposing viewpoints. So here, a strong editorial doesn't ignore the other side. By acknowledging and then refuting opposing arguments, the editorial builds credibility. It shows that the writer has considered all angles of the debate before settling on their final stance, which makes their own argument more persuasive. Here, in the third characteristic of an editorial, you must you must provide opinion to the opinion that being conveyed from your opposing side. So because we can just we cannot just ignore their opinion, because their opinion matters also. And the fourth one is it shows evidence delivered in a professional and formal manner. While an editorial is based on opinion, those opinions must be anchored in facts, statistics, and historical context. Furthermore, the tone remains professional and formal. It avoids name-calling or overly emotional outbursts, relying instead on authoritative language to convince the reader. So, just like what I've said earlier, editorial paper must have a evidence to show in order for you to defend your viewpoints. Now, the fifth one, it offers alternative solution. Now here, an editorial isn't just about complaining, it is about problem solving. After criticizing a specific policy or situation, the writer has a responsibility to suggest a better way forward. This proactive approach distinguishes a constructive editorial from a simple rant rather. So now, number 6, it proffers a solid and concise conclusion. The ending of an editorial should leave no doubt about the publication's stance. It summarizes the main argument and often ends with a call to action, telling the reader or the government exactly what needs to be done next to fix the problem discussed. Here, in our last characteristics, it proffers a solid and concise conclusion. This is this is the time this is the time in where you take an action and to call an action. So in writing an editorial paper, paper isn't just all about writing about a specific issue and interpret your opinion. It is all about it is all about thinking and creating of a solution that you can use to take an action of the specific issue. Now, let's move forward to the functions of editorial. So, the first one is to explain or interpret. Editors often use editorials to explain the way the newspaper covered a sensitive or controversial subject. So, here, editors using the editorial space to clarify how the newspaper approached or covered a particularly sensitive or controversial topic. It provides context and transparency regarding the publication's journalistic choice. So, here in our first function, explain or interpret. Here, the editorials are explained the way newspaper covered a sensitive or controversial subject. So you must be careful if you as an editor, you must be careful if ever you are covering a very sensitive topic or an issue. Then the second one is criticize. As discussed, editorials constructively criticize actions, decisions, or situations while providing solutions to the problem identified. So editorials serve as a platform for constructive criticism of specific actions, decisions, or broader situations. Crucially, this is not just about finding fault. The editorial must also offer potential solutions to the problems it identified. So this is our second function. As we all know, if we ever heard the word criticize, the first word to come to our mind first is to meant to have a negative feedback towards us. But you know what? The real purpose of criticizing is to improve the areas that or should we say the areas that needs an improvement. So the purpose of criticizing is to it's not finding the fault or to blaming someone or to give a negative feedback. It is all about giving or offer potential solutions that can or to giving a potential solutions to that specific issue. So the third one is to persuade. An editorial primarily aims at driving the readers to proceed with the paper's stand. So here, a primary objective of an editorial is persuasion. Its goal is to convince readers to support their newspaper's specific stance and potentially crusade or take action alongside the publication. So, so just like what I said earlier, persuasion is what is the one of a crucial function of editorial, because you must convince or encourage your readers to to be on your side, or to you need to convince them that your stance or your viewpoints are really matters, and that should be the one that they must stand for it. So the last functions is praise. Editorials are also used to commend people and organizations for having contributed something to champion progress, development, and peace. So here, beyond criticism, editorials are used to formally commend individuals or organizations. This happens when they have made significant contributions that champion progress, foster development, or promote peace within society. So, and that's it for my part, and I hope you learned something from me, and goodbye.
Hey everyone, I am one of the reporters of our group, and today my topic is all about the types of editorial. So, types of editorial number one is editorial interpretation. The main aim of this editorial is to put the news in its proper perspectives. The paper may take a neutral stand on the specified issue and may give the responsibility of choosing a side to the reader themselves. So when we say editorial interpretation, it defines this type as aiming to put news in proper perspectives, with a paper taking a neutral stand and letting readers choose side. So it serves to clarify complex news by providing context without bias. It, its goal is to help readers understand the issue fully so they can form their own informed opinions. Next is editorial criticism. By criticism, it means that the editorial points out the faults in the situation or in an issue mentioned in a news. It uses a scientific method by defining the problem, examining the evidence available, and then perhaps suggesting a solution. So editorial criticism, it states out faults in a situation or news issue using a scientific method of defining the problem, examining evidences, and possibly suggesting solutions. This type of editorial is not about attacking but about constructive analysis. It identifies shortcomings, bases observations on facts, and may offer ways to address the issue to encourage improvement. Next, we have editorial of argumentation or persuasion. So this type of editorial is most common type being used in the dailies. Following the principles of argumentation and debate, this type of editorial takes a stand in controversial issue and tries to convince the reader to adopt this stand. So it notes it is the commonmost type in dailies. Take a stand on controversial issues and try to convince readers to adopt the stand using argumentation principles. It designs to influence opinions. This editorial presents a clear position, supports it with logical reasoning and evidence, and aims to persuade readers to align with the paper's viewpoint. Next, we have editorial of commendation or tribute. Editorial may be used to praise worthy done by a person or by an institution. Thus, this type of editorial, the paper should qualify at the tribute and therefore see that such contribution impacts on the lives of the reading public or the academic community. So, it explains praises worthy deeds by individual or institutions, ensuring the contribution impacts the reading public or academic community. This type recognizes positive actions, highlighting their significance to the community, and it validates the effort of the subject and emphasizes how their work benefits others. Next one, we have editorial of entertainment. Some editorials also discuss issues lightly but often have a serious point gently and subtly suggested and sometimes satirically. So, it discusses issues lightly, often with the serious points suggested gently or satirically. Entertainment editorials make topics more approachable by using humor or subtlety. While they may seem light-hearted, they convey important messages in a way that engages readers without being overly formal. Editorial of Crusade defines it as endorsing a thought or course of action, promoting a concept or advocacy, and is called a campaign editorial. So this type drives change by championing a specific cause or idea. It seeks to mobilize readers to support or take action on issue the paper deems important. Editorial liners. So these are short, witty paragraphs, either serious or light. It describes them as short, witty paragraphs that can be serious or light because they are concise pieces meant to make an immediate impact. Their brevity and wit make them easy to read and memorable, whether conveying a serious message or adding touch of humor. So this is the example. Love is looking up to the Love is looking up to find comfort in the mother's smile. It's running and kissing father's hands to deserve his package. It's thinking and dreaming about a loved one day and night. It's doing things to please the other. It's answering and writing love letters on perfume paper. It's crying and brooding over careless birds. It's rejoicing and walking on the clouds on hearing sweet things. It's loving happily day by day. So, this slide offers a concrete illustration of an editorial, likely an entertainment or reflective type, showing how such pieces can use descriptive emotional language to convey a theme or message. So, editorial structure. Editorial structure explains that an editorial is like an essay, with a title identifying the topic, an introduction stating the writer's view, a body with evidence, and a conclusion restating the view and making a final appeal. So the structure ensures editorials are clear and persuasive. Each each section each section has a specific purpose, from introducing the topic to reinforcing the position, helping readers follow and engage with the argument. So that's it for my part. Thank you everyone for listening.
Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. So I'll be the next reporter, and my topic is about crafting the editorial suggestions for students. So in the planning, the number one is planning the editorial. So let's read the letter A. Decide what issue you will write about and clearly define the issue. And letter B, consider who your intended audience will be. So of course, we are in the planning stage. Okay, so you need to choose, as a writer of the editorial, you need to choose a relevant topic or an issue that will interest your readers or your audience. And also, we have to know their level of knowledge, and we will tailor it with arguments well. So and also our tone and the evidence to the reader's values and beliefs. Okay, so knowing that what they might say in response will actually help um actually help you come up with a good counter arguments. Okay, so next, letter C and D, brainstorm a variety of strategies you can use to gain reader support for your view on the issue. D, develop logical and ethical arguments. Avoid purely emotional rhetoric. So in this one, we have to think of different ways. So it says there, brainstorming a variety of strategies. So we have to think of different ways and um to persuade our readers to agree with with our opinion. So we will list and explore possible techniques that can make our editorial more convincing and appealing to them. Okay, so what kind of strategies this could be? Okay, or what kinds of strategies you can brainstorm? So first is you can actually use strong facts and statistics. So that is to support your argument. Next is you can share a real life examples or stories so that when we share real life example or stories, it would be easier for the readers to relate to that stories, and then they would or that relatable stories that you gave will be relatable, or will be they will be more enticed to read on your page or in your editorial page. Next would be appealing to emotions such as fairness, concern, hope, or urgency, and appealing to logic as well. So by clearly explaining the cause and effect relationships. And of course, addressing opposing views. So later on, we will also going to discuss opposing views from your, of course, opposition. So you explain why your opposition is stronger than the other's opinion of your opposition. So using credible sources of expert opinions, and also asking rhetorical questions that would actually make the readers think. So though the answer is obviously, though the answer is obvious, but you still have, as a good writer, you still have to ask because you want to make the readers think and reflect their own perspectives or feelings, okay? And connecting the issue to readers' daily lives or values. So why is it important to brainstorm? Because these strategies actually will help you as a writer to choose the most effective approach for your audience. We should avoid also writing a one-sided or weak argument. Now we have to make our editorial more persuasive and engaging. So in short, in this planning stage, or if you are planning, you are planning how to convince your readers before you start writing. In letter D, it says there, develop logical and ethical arguments, avoid purely emotional rhetoric. That is because we should, as a writer, good writer, we should avoid emotional rhetoric. We just don't rely on anger, fear, or pity to persuade readers. Okay, so we shouldn't be biased. Emotions can support your argument, that's right, but they should not replace evidence and ethics. In developing logical arguments, you have to use facts, clear reasoning, and in developing ethical arguments, you have to appeal to fairness, what is right and wrong, and you should show concern for the common good and not just for personal interest. Okay? So, for example, you might say, or you might, or for example, in your, let's say in your page, you write there, this law is terrible and makes people suffer. So, that is actually not, this one, that example is not good because that's purely emotional. See, the writer is very emotional upon writing that statement. So instead, you can write in a logical and ethical way like this. This law increases cost for low-income families, which is unfair because it limits their access to basic needs. So I like the other one earlier that I said, this law is terrible and makes people suffer. It's very emotional and you're already pointing out your you're already supporting your argument with anger and fear to the government or to the laws. So next would be, let's read the letter E. Conduct necessary research both to gather information about the writing, about the audience you are writing for. And F, develop an outline to follow before you begin writing. So you have to understand what your readers actually, the reason why we conduct necessary research is to be able to understand what your readers care about. Because knowing their concerns, values, and interests helps you choose arguments that matter to them or will help us. For example, as an editorial writer, we are an editorial writer. So it will help us by knowing their concerns and values. It will help us to choose arguments that matters to them. Okay, to select also effective evidence. That's the reason why we need to gather information because some audiences or readers respond better to statistics, others to personal stories or argument or ethical arguments. And also we have to anticipate objections. Okay, so research helps us predict what our audience might disagree with. Okay, so we can address those concerns as well clearly. And to make our arguments relatable as well. So when readers see how the issue affects them, they are more likely to be convinced. So in short, our research is for our audience. Our research, or we will research our audience so our editorial is relevant or respectful and persuasive and not, it will not disconnect from the reader's real concerns. So now we will go to writing the editorial. So let's read letter A and follow with letter B. Follow the pattern and style of editorial writing. The first person plural voice, we or our, is most common in editorial writing and is appropriate in establishing the credibility of the board. So this one. It is about adapting the structure, which is the introduction, body with evidence, and conclusion. So the tone is, let's say, should be authoritative yet persuasive. Often we use we or our, okay? And purpose, whether you are analyzing issues, taking a stand, influencing opinions. So in most editorial in most editorial, the opinion of the writer there is given near the beginning. Okay, and it followed by a supporting evidence and reasoning. So this is called a direct approach, and it also uses we because it represents the publication's view, establishing credibility. So letters C and D, state your opinion briefly in the fashion of a thesis statement. Give opposing viewpoint first with its quotations and facts. So remember that in explaining the issue objectively as a reporter would and tell why the situation is important. Letter D, this is what I've mentioned earlier, give the opposing viewpoint first before you present your point. Okay, so it is persuasive technique. It's actually a persuasive technique where you objectively present the strongest arguments of the side you disagree with. So you have to present first the side of the opposition or their viewpoint. So that actually is a very strong arguments wherein it doesn't mean that you agree, but you still disagree, but you have to present it first as your strongest arguments using their own facts and quotes, okay, before presenting and defending your own opinion. So how it works in editorial. So first, you state the opposing viewpoint, okay? And then, for example, supporters argue that policy will boost the economy. According to the Department of Finance, it is expected to create thousands of jobs. Okay, so as you can see, and with the example that I just provided, there is a quotation, okay, from the department. There is a direct quotation or quotes rather from a Department of Finance. So this is what they said. Supporters argue that the policy will boost the economy. So according to the Department of Finance. So see, that's the opposing viewpoint. So you start it with their you start it with with a direct quotation from the opposing viewpoint, and then here's your response. Okay, however, okay, this will be your let's say your point or your stand. However, these projections ignore the long-term environmental cost, which may outweigh the term gains. Okay, so then that's it. You present your own viewpoint, point out weaknesses, gaps, or ethical issues in the opposing argument, and then we can support your position with logic, facts, and values. You see, you already pointing out the weaknesses of the opposition's viewpoint, because he said, however, these projections ignore the long-term environmental cost, which may outweigh the short-term gains. Okay, so why we as a good writer of the editorial page, why do we need to do this? Because it makes us look fair-minded and credible. Okay, so readers are more likely to trust, right? If you are doing this technique by presenting their viewpoint first, readers are more likely to trust your argument if you acknowledge the other side first. Third, it allows you to respond directly and show why your position is stronger than the opposition. Than the opposition's viewpoints. Okay, so in short, you are asked to acknowledge the other side first using the real evidence, and then respectfully counter it with your own argument. Okay, so let's proceed to letter E and F. Concede a point of the opposition. They must have some good points you can acknowledge that would make you look rational. Okay, and F is repeat key phrases to reinforce the idea into the reader's minds. Okay. Now go back to the letter E, which is concede a point of the opposition. So this means that by admitting that the opposing side is correct about some aspect of the issue, you don't have to agree with them completely. Okay? You only acknowledge valid or reasonable points. Okay? This shows you are fair, open-minded, as what I've said, logical, and not biased or stubborn. So why this helps? Because readers trust writers, right? Who recognize complexity. It makes your argument stronger and not weaker. It represents readers to accept your counter-argument. Right, so in short, conceding a point shows you are reasonable and credible. So next is the letter F, which is the repeat key phrases. So this means actually that deliberately or intentionally, you have to restate important words or phrases so that readers remember your main points. Repetition emphasizes your central argument. It helps readers retain your point. The repeated phrases becomes associated with your position. And this helps because it creates a clarity and impact. Okay? It makes your editorial sound confident and purposeful. In short, repeating key phrases helps your main idea stick in the reader's mind. Of course, if you keep on repeating the keywords or your phrases, it will stick or it will retain on your reader's mind. And then let's go to next letter, which will be, let me read, give a realistic solutions to the problem that goes beyond common knowledge. And letter H, wrap it up in a concluding punch that restates your opening remark or thesis statement. So give a realistic. Okay, so this means that you propose a practical and achievable solutions and not the obvious and overly simple ones. Okay, so I think we should avoid ideas like the government should act or people should be more responsible. But instead, we can say schools should improve discipline, schools should adopt mediation programs and train teachers in conflict resolution. So those are just the examples. Okay, so, and to wrap it up in a concluding punch, that means that you're ending your editorial with a strong conclusion that echoes your main argument. So again, restate your thesis using different words, not the same words, but you are restating your thesis in a different words or a different paraphrasing rather to make it more understandable. And then next, leave the reader with a memorable final thought. Reinforce why your position matters. Okay, because if your opening argues that, example, if your opening argues that education reform is urgent, then your conclusion should remind readers why delaying action will harm future generations. Because, right, what I have said as my example, if the opening statement argues that education reform is urgent, then the conclusion should tell the readers why delaying action will harm future generations. Okay, so that will actually leave the reader a memorable final thought. And next is, let's read the next one. Keep it to 300 to 500 words for a beginner like you, and make every word count, and then develop a strong introductory statement to capture readers' attention and to state your opinion. So keep it 300 to 500 words, of course, because aside from being a beginner, then we also have to write concisely, right? And avoid unnecessary words or fancy words, flowery words. So we stay within the recommended length. Remove repetition, filler phrases, and off-topic details. Focus only on ideas that directly support your argument. Okay, why this matters? It's because a short editorial forces you to be clear, focused, and persuasive. Okay, so next, the last one, developing a strong introductory statement. So we have to, right, as what I have mentioned earlier, we need to have an introduction, body, and conclusion. So we have to start with a compelling opening that clearly shows where you stand in the introductions, right? So should make sure that your opening statement would actually, let's say, will catch the reader's attention. So we may use a striking fact, because we always have to state with the fact first, right? We always have to use striking fact, or statistics could be a short anecdote or a provocative question, and a bold statement, of course, because this can clearly state our opinion or thesis, and then the readers will eventually get to know your positions right away. Okay, so in short, these guidelines, okay, help us writers or to write an editorial that is focused, persuasive, realistic, and powerful from beginning until end. So here, let's go to the next slide. We have the editorial writing as sample structure. So let me read. Start with news peg with an objective explanation of the issue or controversy. The first paragraph is usually called the news peg. A news peg is a brief statement about the news, event, or issue upon which the editorial is based. Included in the first paragraph is your stand or reaction. Such reaction should be clear and concise. Okay, so it states there that we have to begin our editorial by briefly explaining the current issue or event in a factual, neutral way. Okay, so we have to focus on what happened, who is involved, and why it matters. And again, we have to avoid being opinionated or emotionally or emotional language at the start. This helps readers understand the context before you argue your side. So it mentions, or this one mentions about news peg. So a news peg is a short introduction, okay, that links your editorial to a real, timely issue or event. Okay, so it's a short introduction, and it links to your editorial issue or event, current event. So it answers the question, why are you writing this editorial now? So it shows that your opinion is based on a current and relevant issue. Okay, it grounds your arguments in reality and not speculation. So also including in the first paragraph is your stand or reaction. Okay, because that means that even in the opening paragraph, you must clearly state your opinion or position as well. So I think I mentioned this already, that your stand or your opinion should be clear, direct, and concise. Readers should immediately know where to stand. The readers or your audience who will get to read your article will eventually get to know where you stand. If your opening paragraph clearly and directly pointing out your stand and your opinion or position. Okay, you have to, as a writer, you also have to avoid vague statements. Those statements that are not really understandable, or let's say not clear. So after last week's, I have an example, by the way. After last week's widespread flooding across Metro Manila, the public is once again asking why billions of pesos in flood control budgets have not solved the problem. It is time for the government to ensure that flood control funds are used efficiently and transparently, because citizens deserve real protection, not annual excuses. So, as we all know that flood control is a current issue. So that is the news peg, okay? And your stand is, where is the stand here, or your, let's say, your opinion or your position, that clearly state your opinion or clearly state your position. So this is this part right here, the second sentence. It is time for the government to ensure that flood control funds are used efficiently and transparently, because citizens deserve real protection, not annual excuses. See? So that's actually the your stand as a writer. Okay. So first you will write the current issue, which is actually the flood control. It's very we all know it's an issue that mostly all Filipinos know. And then this one, your stand also after the news peg, just the current news or current event, you have to state your stand or position. So in short, you start first with facts, which is the news peg, and facts connect it to the real current issue, and then clearly state your opinion on your position or your stand. So this structure helps your editorial or our editorial sound more informed, credible, relevant, and persuasive from the very beginning. Okay, so in this way, it will, sustain your readers' interest to read the entire article. So next, let's go to the next slide. Present your opinion first. As the writer, you disagree with these viewpoints. Identify the people, especially those who oppose you. Use facts and quotations to state objectively their opinions. You may opt to give a strong opposition of the opposition. So example, many flood control projects remain unfinished or poorly constructed. Reports show that some canals were only partially dredged and several floodgates remain non-functional during heavy rains. These issues highlight a pattern of weak monitoring and possible misuse of funds. Some argue that flooding has worsened only because of stronger typhoons and climate change, claiming that the government is already doing its best. So, for this one, present your position first. So, I already have mentioned this earlier. So, before defending your own opinion, you clearly explain the views you disagree with. Okay. So, as you can see, many flood control projects remain unfinished. Right? This is the opening statement. Remain unfinished or poorly instructed. Report shows that, etc. Okay, so in this example, it clearly shows that you present the viewpoints, okay, of your opposition. Why it's important again is what I've mentioned earlier. It builds credibility and fairness. It prepares readers for your counter-argument. So in short, you present the opposing side first clearly and fairly using real evidence. Then you explain why you disagree. Let's go to the next slide. Directly refute the opposition's beliefs. You can begin your article with transition, pull in other facts and quotations from people who support your position. Concede a valid point of the position, which will make you appear rational, one who has considered all the options. So we even have I even put the examples there. So let me read. It is true that extreme weather has become more frequent and this does contribute to heavier rainfall. However, climate change is not an excuse for negligence. If anything is if anything, it is a reason to make flood control systems stronger, not weaker. Climate reality demands better planning, not blame shifting. See? So this means that after presenting the opposing view, you clearly have to explain why you disagree with it. Okay? You point out the errors, weaknesses, or limitations in their arguments. See? There's also what we call the transitional words. I even use the however there, the word however. So, but by the way, before that, we have to stay respectful and logical and not emotional or personal. Okay. So, and in using transition word or phrases, it helps us to move smoothly. Okay. Our writing will help us move smoothly from the opposing view to your or to our rebuttal. You can use this word, you can use the transitional words like we already know that. That's example, however, on the other hand, despite these claims, while this argument seems reasonable, something like that. So these transitions will signal readers to that your response is, or our response is, clear, that our response is beginning. So let me go to the next one. Give other original reasons or analogies. In defense of your position, give reasons from strong to strongest order. Use a literary of cultural allusion that lends your credibility and perceived intelligence. So I have a very long examples there. Um, this actually shows, analogies and cultural allusion, which a good writer can incorporate in his or her article, in his editorial article, in his or her editorial article, rather. So let me read this one. Too many flood control projects remain unfinished or poorly maintained. Some canals are dredged only on paper, while drainage systems that were repaired last year are already clogged today. We cannot pretend that such inconsistencies are harmless. They are symptoms of a system that fails to watch itself. Every year, budgets increase, yet the results remain unchanged. We see press releases, ribbon cuttings, and photo opportunities, but no real audit of whether the funds were used wisely. So see, this is a very strong stand of yours. Public officials ask for trust, but how can we trust a process that refuses to be transparent? There's even a question there. So this is a continuation. This is no longer a matter of inconvenience. It is a matter of survival. Flooded hospitals delay medical care. Submerged roads cut off communities. Contaminated water heightens disease. We cannot gamble with people's lives while waiting for better weather or future plans. The danger is real today. So if you can notice that this one is using analogies in defense of your position. Also give reasons from strong to strongest order. Yeah. So you may also use a literary of cultural allusion that lends to your credibility. So by the way, why we use analogies or literary cultural allusions? So analogies, it is when you are comparing your point, okay, to something familiar to your readers. So you make your argument easier to understand. You are comparing your point that is already familiar to the readers, okay, to make your argument easier to understand. And then literary or cultural allusions. This refers to well-known stories, books, movies, or historical events to lend authority to your argument. So my example there is about the flood control, which is most of us, like I've said, Filipinos are very familiar with. So I will just state, because actually in my example, it only states the analogy because it's what I've said. You may use whether analogy or literal or cultural allusions in your article. So we cannot here. The example is we cannot pretend the second line in the paragraph, the second sentence in the first paragraph, we cannot pretend that such inconsistencies are harmless. They are symptoms of a system that fails to watch itself. Why it's analogies? Because here, the system, they're talking about system, which is actually the government or the flood management, right? So, and it's being compared to a living organism or a self-monitoring mechanism that should watch itself. Okay? So it helps the reader visualize and understand the problem. The system is failing in in the same way a body would fail if it ignored its own symptoms. Okay? So I hope I am clear on that. So again, we have another example of analogy um, in this paragraph. We cannot gamble with peoples. Wait, this is yeah. This is in the last paragraph, in the last sentence. We cannot gamble with people's lives while waiting for better watch or future plans. The danger is real today. So that one, this compares trusting the governments, right, in action to gambling. This compares rather to trusting the government's inaction to gambling, a risky activity with high stakes, as we all know. So it emphasizes the danger and irresponsibility of waiting, just waiting passively. So in short, uh, we use these techniques to give an original, logical reasons to defend your view. You use analogies or cultural allusions or references to make your argument memorable, credible. Arrange the form, arrange them also. We can also arrange this from strong to strongest to make your editorial increasingly persuasive. Okay. So okay, for the last um one, number 5, conclude with some punch, give solutions to the problem of challenge the reader to be informed. So here, my example is again about the recent flooding. It's not just a natural disaster. It is a moral reminder. We must demand transparency, question where every peso goes, and refuse to wait for next year. For solutions that should have existed decades ago, the challenge now falls not only on leaders but on citizens. Be informed, be critical. The water may rise, but so must our standards. So this one, it gives already a solution to the problem. Yeah, by telling your readers or by challenging the reader to be informed. So that's all for my part, and thank you for watching and listening. And I will give this to the next reporter. Thank you. Goodbye.
I am the next reporter and I'm going to discuss about some techniques in the beginning the editorial. Remember that this introduction must contain enough spark to urge the readers to read the whole article. The editorial writer has more freedom to display his or her creativity than the news writer in a writing on the lead. So there are some techniques that the writers need to apply to make a creative in writing a lead. So number one, which is an emphatic statement or a maxim. So it is a concise or powerful or often universally true statement used to open editorials or arguments that to grab attentions and establish a firm position. It acts as a concise guiding principle or, in a journalism, a strong briefly that sets the tone. So example here is life is unfair, but life is what we live for. This is a true statement because we experience that life is so unfair, but we don't have no choice because this is the life that we live for. And then the next one is a striking statement about the topic. So it is a powerful or effective statement does not merely state the topic, it acts as a killer argument, a single argumentative sentence that takes a firm, defensible and stand that a reasonable people might dispute. So also that this statement is some are negative and a positive aspects. So the example here is a zero crime rate or a peaceful state. These are as some of the epithets attached to Batanes province. So we cannot say that the zero crime rate or a peaceful state in Batanes province because we cannot say that because the striking statement is about a positive or a negative aspect. So that's why we cannot say that in a Batanes province there is no crime or a peaceful state. 3 is quotation. Quotation is used to add credibility, emotional impact, and diverse perspective to an opinion piece, typically highlighting expert opinions or direct reactions to an issue, and they must be accurately cited the name and title and usually incorporated via quotation sandwich. So example, Mary are called but few are chosen. So the Bible tells. As you can see that there's a quotation used in the statement. So because they talk about Mary is the name of a person. And the next one is a narration. So narration is talk about this uses storytelling techniques such as a plot, character, and a setting to frame an argument, emotionalize a topic, or illustrate a complex issue. It acts an engaging, often personal introduction or a compelling anecdote to make a persuasive point more memorable rather than just stating the facts. So, example, the 25th of April marked a seemingly a job interview of the presidential as they engaged in the third and last round of the debate in Pangasinan. So, these statements use in narration because they mark as a memorable those last and the third round of the debate in Pangasinan, which is talk about the settings to frame the argument. And the next one is an order. An order is talks about effective editorial follows a structured three-part order, which is the introduction, body, and conclusion, designed to persuade readers on the current issue. It begins with a compiling hook and a clear stances, provides evidence-based arguments, addresses opposing views, and ends with a proactive solution or a strong, memorable summary. So, example is stop media killing. So, they say that you need to, it acts as an order because they say that stop media killing. Number 6 is a question. So, a question is a utterance or a sentence seeking information, clarification, or a response, often using integrative words who, what, why, or inverted verb subject order marked by a question mark in writing, but can also a matter for debate or doubt or test of knowledge. So, example in here is, do you still remember when Rodrigo Duterte vowed to decline the country criminality to in 3 months to 6 months? They use as question mark because they are asking questions. And this number 7, which is a poetic. So poetic is to elevate persuasion by blending logical argument with artistic language, using metaphors, imagery, and rhythm to create lasting impact. It enhances the reader's engagement, making dry topics evocative and memorable rather than just informative. So, example, as the electioneers, many Filipinos are still like small boats tossed by the wind, yet innocent that a kilometer away is a waterfall that may swallow them down to perpetual poverty. They need to say no to boat buying because they said that the poetic is talks about symbolic language or torn into complex issues. That's why they become into concrete emotional because the Filipinos here are being swallowed down by perpetual poverty, and that's why they become more emotional. That's why they need to say no to boat buying because they are just being used. Number 8, prophecy. So it is refers to the forward-looking, predictive, or prognosticative aspects of an opinion piece, where the writer forecasts futures develop based on the current trends, facts, and analysis. It is form of foretelling, interpreting the meaning of the current events rather than just foretelling mystical pictures. So, example, if we do not listen to the cry of the Mother Earth, we will wake up one day morning wishing live in Jupiter and Saturn. So they use this an example because this is based on the evidence or an outcome or a warn of our reading consequences, because they state here that if we do not listen to the cry of our Mother Earth, so that they can create or being destroyed. And the next one is reaction. Reaction is a core of subjective argument, approval or disapproval, or a critique that a publication takes regarding a specific news, event, of issue, situated with an introduction as a response to the news page or that anchors the article, providing a firm sentence stances supported by facts in the body paragraph. So, example is, never did we see the student council dip its finger in the issue of amending to the student manual. So, and last is analogy. Analogy is a rhetorical device that compares a complex, abstract, or controversial issues to the familiar or concrete concept to persuade, explain, or clarify a point. And example is like a steam bowl cleaner, the newly elected president of the student council is trying to clean up the controversies attached to the organization. And that's all of my part. Thank you.
Good day, everyone. Now I will discuss the techniques in ending an editorial. There are ways writers and an editorial to leave a strong impact on the readers. Good endings make the message clear and memorable. So I will discuss you the common techniques now. First is call to action. You ask reader to do something. Example, it's time for everyone to support proper waste segregation. Act now before it's too late. So call action is that you encourages readers to you encourages readers to do something, like for the example, they encourage to segregate, to support the proper ways of segregation. Next is summary ending. Okay, so summary ending, you restate the main point of the editorial. Example, in the end, the solution to traffic is simple: discipline, planning, and cooperation. So when we say summary ending, it tells that, it ends by reminding readers of the main point. Like for the example, the main point is the solution of the traffic is discipline, planning, and cooperating. Next is prediction. You tell what might happen in the future. Example, if we continue ignoring climate change, our children will suffer the consequences. So in simple word, prediction, it ends by saying what may happen next. Like for the example, they tell that if you ignore the climate change, that their children your children will suffer the consequences. So they say what happened next if you ignore the climate change. Next is quotation. Use a famous saying to strengthen your point. Example, as Nelson Mandela said, education is the most powerful weapon. Let's protect it. So in other words, quotation, it ends by using someone else's wise words to make the message stronger. Like for the example, they use Nelson words, the education is the most powerful weapon. So they use that as a message to make the message stronger. Next is emotional appeal, and with a message that touches the every reader's feeling. Example, every stray dog deserves compassion. Let's choose kindness. So in other words, emotional appeal tries to touch the reader's heart to make them agree. Like for the example, they use every stray dog deserve compassion. Let's choose kindness. So it feels the reader heart about the stray dogs, that because also the dog deserve compassion. They use that so that the readers make them agree. Next is the techniques in persuasion, techniques used to convince or influence people to believe or do something. First is ethos or credibility. You persuade by showing authority or trust. Example, doctors agree that vaccines are safe. So, in other words, ethos or credibility, people believe the message because it comes from someone trusted or knowledgeable. Like for the example, doctors agree that vaccines are safe. Next is pathos. Pathos or emotions. Use feelings to convince the audience. Like, for example, imagine the happiness of families finally living in a safe homes. So, pathos or emotions, in other words, it convinces people by touching their feelings. Like for what we use in the example, we use the we use the imagine the happiness of families finally living in the safe home. So it touches their feelings to the readers. Next is logos. Logos or logic. Persuade using facts, numbers, and evidence. Example, studies show recycling reduce waste by 40%. So, in other words, logos or logic is that it convinces people by using fact and clear reasons. Like for what like for the example, fact and clear reason because studies shows recycling reduced waste by 40%. Next is repetition. Repetition repeat keywords or ideas to make readers remember. Example, we need change in habit, change in attitude, change in leadership. So in other words, repetition it convinces people by repeating the key idea. Like for what the example, the change in habit, the change in attitude, and the change in leadership. So next is bandwagon. Make people follow because everyone is doing it. Example, join thousands of students who already support the reading campaign. So in other words, it convinces people by saying that many others are already doing it. Like for example, the example of join thousand of students who already support the reading campaign. So so there are many people doing it because it's a join thousands of students. So this technique encourages people to agree because everyone else doing it. Next is testimonial. I think this is the last one. So testimonial use well-known person or satisfied user to support your idea. For example, a famous athlete says this drink improved his energy. So testimonial convinces people because someone important or popular agree. Testimonial uses statement from a famous or respected person to support their ideas. Like for the example, a famous athlete says this drink improve his energy. So many people also drink that energy drink because the famous athlete says this drink improve his energy. So that's all for my part. I hope you understand my report. So now this is the end of my discussion. Goodbye everyone.
So, good day everyone. So, I am Angela, the next reporter for this group. And my topic for today is all about letters to the editor and sample editorial with analysis. So when we say letters to the editor are written responses from readers reacting to issues previously discussed in the newspaper or concerns happening in the school or community. So usually, letters to the editor, these are done by the people live within the society. They can share their opinions, expressions, comments, reactions towards the issues or the issues that being exist in the previous newspaper or happening inside the community or school or within the society or community. So these letters allow readers to express opinions, clarify misunderstandings, or raise new issues. So in letters to the editor, we can clarify misunderstandings, the things that made us confused about what are the things that happened in the society or in the community, and also we can raise we can raise new issues, like for example giving suggestions to the editor. We will raise our concerns, especially for example abuse, the correct or proper dress code when these people within a society trying to express themselves. So the proper dress code, and also for example when exercising. So for example, the but one raised their concerns to those people, especially the girls, that they must wear proper dress in order or to avoid physical abuse or rape or something in the street. So the letter writer should be given the opportunity to state his or her opinion without comment from the staff. So even if the letter criticizes something that the newspaper has done, so the letter writer will give them the chance to express their opinions without asking or without without the influence of other staff or other people. So they can express their thoughts, opinions. And also the newspaper has had its say. Now it is the reader's turn. So of course, in letters to the editor, these people will not just focus on the writer itself or the newspaper publisher. It's not always about them, but also to those people. So we should, as an publisher of this news in the society, we must listen to the concerns, suggestions of the peoples within the society. So when the readers submit letters, it is a healthy sign for the newspaper. So of course, when these writers or those writers, the peoples from the society, submit the letters from the news that you have published in the public, therefore this news is very effective. This news is either effective or negative from different people's perspective. So of course, if as a publisher or of that news, if we receive a letter from them, then that's the time that we can say that our news is effective and very suitable for them, that they can relate from that. So that shows they are actually reading the paper and are using the ed pages as they should be used as a public forum. So that's the time. That's also proof that they really understood the news itself. They really understand. They appreciate the news. They read it without any judges or judgment and any bad influence from other people. So for example, sample editorial with analysis like vandals. So the walls of Mavuyuk Stage College have a new coat of paint and are presently clean. Whether they retain this present state of cleanliness depends almost entirely of the students. So the first spots appeared as a result of negligent student leaning against the walls and scraping the soles of their shoes on them. Some students have also taken a peculiar delight in making long pencil scrawls in the walls as they go to classes. So the Student Government Council revealed that 6 out of 10 buildings are written with unnecessary statements. So what will our visitors say? According to an observant parent, MCNs, more than any other group of students abuse their buildings. So this report, whether true or otherwise, should serve as challenge. Will the walls remain clean? So that is one of the example of editorial with analysis. So this is an example of an editorial with analysis, which shares the newspaper's opinions about the problem. So what readers found in the editorial? So the school walls were newly painted but are being dirtied and vandalized by students. So some students lean on walls and scrape their shoes while others write on the walls with pencils. So meaning, our report says 6 out of 10 buildings have necessary writing. So there is concern about what visitors will think of the school. So a parent claims students often abuse school property. So the editorial ends with a challenging question. Will the walls remain clean? So the meaning of that is that the editorial highlights a problem, which is the vandalism. So it shows its effects and encourages students to take responsibility for keeping the school clean. So this is an example of letter to the editor where they raise concern the issues in MSCNs or in the school. So they raise their concerns for that to be able to addressed by the school's superintendent or higher or the principals inside the classroom. So the importance of readers' letters is that when readers send letters, it is a healthy sign for the newspaper. So it shows people are actually reading and engaging with the content. So the opinion or editorial page becomes a public forum where voices can be heard. So readers' feedback makes the newspaper more interactive, relevant, and democratic. So again, editorials where the newspaper shares its opinion on issues like vandalism in school. So letters to the editor where readers respond with their own opinions. So they respond to their own opinions that they want to address the specific issues that they encounter. And yes, public participation. So which makes the newspaper a space for discussion and community involvement. So they encourage the full participation of the part of the school's community. So together they show that newspapers are not just for reading news, but also for sharing ideas, raising concerns, and encouraging responsibility. So in letters to the editor, we tend to share our ideas. We're raising our concerns towards what are the things that might be confusing for us and confusing for other people. So they encourage responsibility, of course, if these current issues that we want to address. Therefore, those people that we want to address or take responsibility, or we want them, so these people will take responsibility to solve this specific issue or problem that we raised for them. So that's of course, if as publisher, if we receive letters to the editor, therefore the news that we published is effective and it really caught their attention, and they really understand what is the purpose, the goal of the newspaper that we create, that we published inside the community. So that's it for my part, and I hope you understand. And this is, there are other, so that's all. So that's all for today. Thank you and goodbye.
Hello everyone, good evening. So today we will tackle is all about the analysis of the editorial. The first paragraph, the first sentence talks about the news peg or the introduction of the issue, while the next sentence gives the position of the paper, that is, the cleanliness of the walls paintings and depends on the behavior of the students. The first paragraph means it is a group of sentences. It is about the main idea that usually starts on a new line. In editorial article, the first paragraph usually it is introduced the first topic or the issue that the writer will talk about. It is also set the tone to grab the reader's attention and often gives a hint of the main point of argument that will be developed in the rest of the piece. So when someone asks about the topic, they're asking what that opening paragraph means, and also it is about what is they're saying and why is it in there and how it leads into the rest of the paragraph. Next is the body of the paragraph. The second paragraph talks about the evidence about the negligence of students in taking care of the newly painted buildings. On the other hand, the third paragraph employs persuasive techniques such as presenting statistics from authorities and asking of a rhetorical question. The body of the paragraph means is right after the introduction and before the conclusion. The middle part is usually making up the most of the text, and also each body paragraph is focused on one main point that supports the overall argument of idea of the whole piece. Think of them as the meat of the writing where you can prove or explain what you stated in the introduction, and also they use evidence or examples to back up that point, then explain why that evidence matters. And also, the body paragraphs it is about the writer actually builds the case or the story step by step. Without body paragraphs, an essay can feel a list of thoughts instead of persuasive or informative piece. So when someone says the body paragraphs, they're talking about those middle paragraphs that carry the main explanation, evidence, or arguments of the writing. One idea per paragraph, each linked to the overall purpose of the paragraph. Next is the conclusion. The conclusion, as discussed about, editorial endings should be short, witty, and simple such that they can propel a challenge to the students. In that way, the editorial writer just implied a question that makes the readers hanging, giving them the responsibility to act on their answers. The conclusion is all about to summarize the argument, or it is the reminders to the reader of the main points, and also shows why the argument is matters, answer the what question, or points to bigger future effects, or even call a action. So when someone refers to the conclusion, they're talking about this the final paragraph that can be wraps that things up and leaves the reader with the main takeaway or a sense of closure. Now, so this is the editorials, sample editorials. The sample editorials example is the wrong priority. Sa tamang panahon, this is a famous line of Noda ni Dora all the time. Phenomenal Kaliseri from Mondays to at a non-time show in a certain show. It's like communicable disease that has rapidly. I'm not going read all this statement. So as I mentioned above, the wrong priority is, as you notice, that there conclude here the first paragraph or the argument, and then the body paragraph, which is the middle, and then the third and the conclusion is about the last of the paragraph. Now, next example is a budget clouds. As you can see, there is the first paragraph, which is the Aquino administration plans to reduce the budget allocation of 111. And then this is the middle paragraph. Data show that the 7.1 billion allocated to CS only. And then the third paragraph, which is the conclusion. We need to actively participate in understanding where and how the citizens' taxes are used. The next is fueling the flame. The main idea here is, or the first paragraph you can see is, si Isiola continues to attain semesters of accreditation. We are here the second paragraph is the sustained internet connection in the campus, and then the third, which is the conclusion, with all development plans issue continues to shine in the department of academies. The next is choice or chance. So this is the first paragraph just recently, which is the argument, and then the second paragraph is the body of the paragraph, which include this first paragraph is to set, as I said earlier, is to set the tone and also to grab readers' attention. And the second paragraph is, it is a build or story by step that has explanation and point, and also it illustrates examples. And then the last of this paragraph is all about the summarize the argument and it also shows why the argument matters, and also it can even call an action, as you can see, equipped with the needed knowledge, skills, and float with desirable values, regarded with looking after a job which promised him a renewed posture, or would he be choosing an occupation which satisfies and fulfills dreams? This is our conclusion, and the last paragraph. Every CLC graduate has all the chance to make the right choice, of course. Only he could be the best he could be through a right choice in every chance. That's all for my part. Thank you.
Good day, everyone. So now we are going to tackle about personal viewpoint writing columns. Shall we have column writing, its nature and concepts, an opinion article that shows the writer's viewpoint. So, column writing is an opinion article that shows the writer's personal viewpoint. It allows the writer to express thoughts, feelings, and judgments about an issue. Freer than news and feature writing. It is freer than news and feature writing because it does not strictly follow formal structures. The writer can use a personal style and tone while still being clear and responsible. Why it is hard? Needs strong thinking, not just writing skills. Column writing is hard because it requires strong critical thinking, not just good writing skills. The writer must analyze issues deeply before expressing an opinion. Opinions must be clear, logical, and convincing. Opinions must be clear, logical, and convincing so readers can understand and be persuaded by the writer's viewpoint. Next, skills needed. Be well read and curious. As a columnist, must be well read and curious to gain enough knowledge and ideas about different issues, able to analyze issues and listen to others' views. As a columnist should be able to analyze issues carefully and listen to other viewpoints before forming an opinions. Learn from experts. Read good columnists. Reading good columnists helps writers understand effective styles and strong opinions. Study how they use stories, quotes, and facts. Studies how experts use stories, quotes, and facts helps improve clarity and credibility in column writing. Next, we have unique to column writing. Has loyal readers who follow the writer's voice. Column writing often has loyal readers who regularly follow the writer's voice and opinions. It requires dedication and consistency because columns are usually published on a regular basis. Be ready for criticism. Strong opinions can offend others. Strong opinions may offend others, especially when discussing sensitive issues. Accept feedback professionally. A good columnist accepts criticism and feedback professionally and uses them for improvement. So, next, we have 7 types of column. But before that, so let's discuss first the editorial or news commentary column. It is a type of writing that explains, comments on, or interprets current issues in the news. It may focus on one topic or several short topics in one article. Editorial columnists use information from recent events, observations, interviews, and investigations to help readers understand the issue better. So, in editorial news commentary column, this type of column discusses and explains current issues found in the news. It helps readers understand events by giving opinions, interpretations, and analysis based on facts, observations, interviews, and investigations. An editorial column may focus on one major issue or several related topics in a single article. Okay, shall we have example? Why schools should strengthen digital safety rules. Next, shall we have variety or humor column. is an entertainment piece that includes short and funny items like jokes, puns, playful comments, and humorous school stories. It should always be clean, original, and appropriate, giving readers light and enjoyable content related to school life. So, variety or humor column, this type of column is written mainly to entertain readers. It uses jokes, puns, playful comments, and funny school stories to make people laugh. The content should be clean, original, and appropriate, offering light and enjoyable reading, especially about everyday school life. Like for example, a column joking about students' funny mistake during school assembly or playful pranks in the classroom. Next, shall we have personals or chatter column. This column talks about well-known people sharing true and complimentary information about them. So, this type of column focuses on well-known people in the school or community. It shares true, it shares true and positive information about their achievements, activities, or good qualities. The purpose is to recognize and praise their efforts and contributions. So, the perfect example of personals or chatter column is a column highlighting a teacher's achievement or a student who won an award, praising their efforts and contributions. Next, shall we have hodgepodge column. This is a column of various topics that are separated by mustache like asterisk. Ensure that topics included are relevant and timely to the readers. So, this type of column includes different short topics in one article, separated separated by symbols like asterisk. Each topic should be relevant and timely for the readers, covering news, reminders, or highlights. So the example is school news. The asterisk, the library will be closed on Monday for inventory. Next, we have opinion column. This column focuses on the reader's view, can include polls, inquiring reporter, pieces, or letters to the editor. So, this type of column focuses on the reader's views and ideas. It can include polls, interviews, or letters to the editor to show what people think about certain issues. So the example is a column asking students what changes they want in the school cafeteria and sharing their responses. So next, exchange column. This column features interesting news or suggestions taken from other school papers. Comments may or may not be included. So, this type of column shares interesting news, stories, or suggestions from other school papers. The writers may add comments or simply present the information as it is. The example is a column sharing a story about a school in another town hosting a successful charity event with or without additional commentary for your own school. So we have the last type of column. We have book column. Provide provides short book reviews about 50 words, including the title, author, a summary of the content, and a brief comment on its usefulness for the reader. Detailed reviews may also include information about the author. So this type of column gives short reviews of books. It usually around 50 words. It includes the title, the author, a brief summary of the story, and a short comment on why the book is useful or enjoyable for readers. Sometimes it may also include information about the author. So the example of um, book column is Charlotte's Web by E.B. White, a heartwarming story about friendship between a pig and a spider, great for lessons on kindness and empathy. So that's all for my part, and thank you for listening.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is the continuation of our report, Tips in Curriculum a Column. Number 1, write with conviction. State your opinion clearly and confidently. Do not sound unsure. Let readers feel that you truly believe in what you are saying. Number 2, maintain your focus. Stick to only one main idea. Do not jump to other topics so readers will not get confused. Number 3, understand opposing viewpoints. Know what people on the other side think. Think about their arguments and explain why you disagree using good reasons. Number 4, refer to facts. Support your opinions with real and reliable facts. Avoid using too many numbers, but make sure your information is true. Number 5, use analogies. Explain difficult ideas by comparing them to simple, familiar things. This helps readers understand better. Number 6, be critical. Point out problems and mistakes. Honestly, you can name people involved, but always be fair and respectful. Number 7, do reporting. So gather real information by observing or asking questions. This makes your column more believable and realistic. Number 8, localize and personalize. Connect your topic to local places, people, or personal experience so readers can relate to it more easily. Number 9, be passionate. Write with feeling and energy. Show that you care about the issue so readers will care too. Number 10, provide a solution. So do not just describe the problem, offer a clear suggestion or solution to help improve the situation. Next, suggestions for beginning columnist. When writing a column, do number 1, give the reader timely, helpful information. So write about current issues and provide information that is useful to readers right now. Number 2, develop a structure and keep it. Write on a regular schedule, follow a consistent format, and publish regularly so readers know what to expect. Number 3, write simple and short sentences and paragraphs. Use clear and easy language. Short sentences make your ideas easier to understand. Number 4, in personal columns, use local names and places. Mention familiar people and places to make your column more interesting and relatable. Number 5, let others speak for you by use of quotes and references. Use quotes and sources to support your opinions and make them stronger. Number 6, learn the difference between a column and a news stories. A column expresses opinions while a news story reports facts only. Do not confuse the two. Next, when writing a column, do not number 1, use technical or complex words. Avoid difficult words that readers may not understand. Keep your language simple. Number 2, talk in jargon or unfamiliar terms. Do not use special terms that only experts understand. Write so everyone can follow. Number 3, include too much detail or material. Do not overload your column with information. Your goal is to spark interest, not to explain everything. Number 4, refer to yourself in the third person or quote yourself. Do not say this author or quote your own name. Use words like I, me, or my instead. That would be all for my part. Thank you.
Good day, everyone. I'm Charlotte Sopreto. I'm the next reporter, and my topic is all about some more tips on column writing. So, the first tips to remember in column writing is write the way you talk, but do not discard good English usage and grammar by being friendly and informal. So, write the way you talk, but use correct English. Column writing is personal. It should sound like a real person talking, not like a textbook. However, being friendly does not mean being careless. You must still follow correct grammar, spelling, and sentence structure. So, this is important because readers feel more connected when the writing sounds natural and conversational. So, example, instead of saying or writing, the youth today are encountering numerous adversities. You can write, many young people today are facing different challenges. And number 2, try to uncover the opening that will catch the interest of your readers. So find an opening that catches readers' interest. So the first line is very important because it decides whether the reader will continue or stop reading. A good opening can be a question, a surprising fact, a short story, a strong opinion. So this is important because readers have many things to read. A boring opening will make them skip your column. So, for example, what if I told you that most of us waste 2 hours a day without realizing it? So this sentence here really catches the reader's attention. So in number 3, use a variety of material, not just one subject. So use a variety of material. So not just one subject. This means even if your column has one main topic, you should use different kinds of content such as personal experiences, opinions, observations, facts, short videos. This is important because using only one kind of idea makes the column dull and repetitive. So, for example, if your topic is education, you can include your experience as a student, a teacher's observation, a short fact about learning. Number 4, write about people. Keep heavy subject matter to a minimum. When using a subject matter, try to tell the story through the experiences of local people. So readers connect more with people's stories than with abstract ideas or theories. Instead of explaining a topic in a very technical way, show how it affects real people. This is important because people remember stories more than facts. So, just for an example, instead of explaining unemployment with statistics, tell the story of a parent who lost a job and how it affected the family. So, number 5, write simply, avoid technical or difficult words, long sentences, long paragraphs. So, in simple writing is clear writing. Long sentences and difficult words confuses readers. Column writing should be easy to read and easy to understand. So, why is this important? This is important because columns are usually read quickly. Readers don't want to stop and reread sentences. Just for example, instead of saying the manifestation of dissatisfaction was evident, we can just say it simple and in a clear way, like people were clearly unhappy. So instead of saying it in a more complicated and using complicated or difficult words, we can use an easy, sabotable, friendly words. So number 6, do not weigh your column down with too much detail. Try to stimulate interest in a subject, but do not exhaust the subject. So this means don't overload your column with too much detail. A column is not a full report or research paper. Your goal is to introduce ideas, not to explain everything. This is important because too much detail can tire or bore the reader. So, for example, mention a problem briefly and explain its importance, but don't include every small detail of it. In number 7, be timely. Keep up with the effect of weather conditions, seasons, etc., pointing out the significance of these conditions locally. So be timely. This means that write about issues that are happening now or are relevant to the current situation in your community or country. This is important because readers care more about topics that affect their daily lives. For example, writing about rising prices, weather changes, school issues happening this year. Number 8, remember the people you are talking to and give them information that will benefit them in a way they can understand. So always remember your readers. Further explanation for this is that who are my readers? What do they know already? What will help them? This is important to know your readers before writing a column because in writing becomes effective when it meets the reader's needs. So if your readers are parents, explain issues in a practical way. And if your readers are students, use school related examples. Because if you're writing something that doesn't benefit your readers, then they might not give some time to read your writings or your product, or I mean your output. So in number 9, get a clever name for the column. So give your column a clever and memorable name. A good column name reflects your style and topic. It should be short, creative, and easy to remember. So this is important because readers recognize columns by their titles. For example, Everyday Thoughts, Notes from the Classroom. So this only means that you should have uh, a catchy title or a catchy name for your column so it catches the interest of your readers. So number 10, if the column is meant to be entertained, be sure that it does entertain paper's typical readers. If the column is for entertainment, make it enjoyable. So if your goal is to entertain, you may use humorous, funny observations or light stories, but still stay respectful. This is important because entertainment columns should make readers smile or laugh. Just for example, writing about funny misunderstandings during online classes. So in number 11, stay within the subject range of the column. So do not jump from one topic to another that is unrelated. Stay focused on your column's main theme. This is important because jumping topics confuses readers. Just for example, if your column is about school life, avoid talking about politics. You should just really focus on your topic, school life, and keep ideas short and visually separated. So, for short paragraphs and visual breaks, make reading easier. This is important because readers can quickly scan and understand your ideas. So, for example, short paragraphs or symbols like bullet points. So, number 13, if the column gives serious suggestions, be sure it is reliable. So, be reliable when giving serious advices. So, when giving advice on serious matters, make sure your information is correct and responsible. So, this is important because wrong advice can harm readers. If writing about health, base your ideas on trusted sources that in it is all about facts, because giving informations that is giving misinformation to your readers may harm them or could lead to serious it could lead to serious damages. So 14, for variety, deal with different aspects of the main topic. So discuss different aspects of the main topic. Look at your topic from different angles to keep the column interesting. This is important because variety keeps readers engaged. Example, for topic social media aspects, its benefits, its dangers, its effect on students. So this only means that we should not just focus on one thing, for example, just the benefits of social media, but also um, we should include into our writing the dangers or effect or the benefit of social media and and its usage. So to this is to avoid bias. So in 15, have items set in various typographical styles such as italics, bold type, different points, caps, and short clever heads. So use different typographical styles. Using bold letters, italics, capital letters, and short headings help highlight important points. This is important because it guides the reader's eyes to key ideas. So, for example, important point, always think before posting online. So, if you want to emphasize something, you can use these typographical styles, such as you can you, to elaborate the or to emphasize the important point, like always think before posting online. You can write this or encode this in a bold type or in all caps lock, or for other things that you might that is suitable to use for this part or words. So 16, avoid unkind references to people. Avoid unkind or hurtful reference to people. So even when criticizing, be respectful, be professional, focus on actions or issues, not personal attacks. So this is important because columns should inform but not to harm. Just for example, instead of using this this leader is useless. So we can say it in a more professional or in a more kind way. So some decisions made by leaders need improvement. So it doesn't really, the second sentence doesn't sound hurtful or doesn't sound offensive compared to the first one. So good column writing is clear, simple, respectful, and relevant. It connects with readers by telling real stories, using easy language, and focusing on what truly matters. So, that is for my part about some more tips in column writing. Thank you.